Welcome to Moon to Moon. My name is Britten LaRue, your host, and today I have a very inspiring conversation with a witch by the name of Leanne Thurogood. I'll introduce Leanne in a moment. She's one of the 13th readers for the Magician's Table 2026 this spring. She has a lot of really powerful words for you. But before we get there, I want to introduce a new event that I'm bringing through on February 20th for the Saturn Neptune conjunction. It's called the Dream Reel, and it's going to be a 1 hour Magician's Table global spell for personal and collective dream realization. So I'm going to be holding space. It's also hosted by 13th readers, past and present, for you to divine and name the spell that you are bringing in, what you are summoning for yourself and for our world. It's going to have a lot of high energy because all these people are going to be together in one space doing this at the exact conjunction. So, let me tell you a little bit about this and about why it's meaningful to me and why I think this is so powerful and why I'm so excited about it. You should know before you hear anything else that all you have to do to be able to come to it is to join the mailing list for the 2026 Magician's Table. You'll see a link in the show notes that just says join the wait list. All you have to do is put your name and email in there and you will get the link to come to this. It's free. All right. So, so Saturn and Neptune are coming together at 0 degrees of Aries. If you follow astrology, you're probably very well aware of that. If you don't follow astrology, I'm excited to tell you about it. Either way, this is my way of talking about it. Okay, so let's begin. Let's begin with Neptune. So the planet Neptune is one of the outer planets. We call the outer planets the ones that are beyond Saturn. And so we came into relating to them in the language of astrology sometime after the way we came to relating to them in astronomy, because the ancient astrologers didn't have these planets to bring into their delineation techniques of astrology. But many wonderful, bright human beings have been doing tons of research. And over time, people have been sharing their beautiful gnosis. And we've come into ways that we relate to these planets. And the outer planets are very, very powerful. And their effects and impacts are very real. It's mysterious and amazing. So, Neptune was discovered in the 19th century and it soon became associated with what was rising at the time, which was a rise in spiritualism, studies of dreams, and altered states. And we do think about where we have Neptune as a place where our own sense of reality may feel more expansive, like it's like taking us into a transcendent place, like it's lifting us into a sense of oneness, it's bringing us into a dream, it's bringing us into a kind of collective unconscious. And what can be frightening about Neptune is the sense of unreality, of a sense of being lost to what you had a grip on, a sense of like the ground beneath you is shifting, or like suddenly you've walked into the mists and you don't know where you are anymore. All of the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, have this quality of destabilization. They all do, but they destabilize differently. And destabilization is not bad. Destabilization can be very amazing, especially when things get shaken up that, weren't really helpful to you. So, Neptune has an assignment for us. We're all in a curriculum. There's certain timings when this comes in really strong. I'm born with a really strong Neptunian streak Many of you know that I'm a Pisces sun at 13, and then I have Mercury at 18 Pisces, and then I have Venus at 23 Pisces. And they're all in the 12th house, which we also associate with Neptune because we associate the 12th house with like altered states, retreats away from reality, healing, grace, for forgiveness, recovery. These are all things that can bring us into Neptunian experiences. And the Neptune is in modern astrology associated with Pisces. So already there's like a strong Neptunian streak to my experience of reality. Plus, I'm born Neptune in Sagittarius, squaring all those Pisces planets, especially squaring my Mercury. And I have like a long kind of fear of just kind of like walking through a curtain one day and like not knowing where I am or who I am or how I got there. Um, and, some of that comes from my own relationship to altered states and the experience of like actually not knowing how I got someplace and how destabilizing that is. Um, and also just my deep relationship to story and the imagination and movies, like where even just like a painting on a wall, works of art, like I didn't have the term astral project when I was younger, but like I was fully astral projecting into anything beautiful, including like a moving river. I just remember just like feeling myself going, like leaving my body and going down the river. Um, and yeah, I used to be kind of obsessed with Ophelia, and images of Ophelia, who is often shown just kind of like laying in water. And that is like a big streak in the first half of my life. So in my life, then, when Neptune got to my sun, that's when I found intuitive healing. The moon started talking to me. I asked for a divorce. I started doing lunar rituals. I found astrology. I found the tarot. And I found my abilities as someone who can channel, go into trance states, be able to receive lots of information, and being able to see a whole lot of information from the unseen realms, and be able to like just look at charts and feel them, and be able to turn all of those Neptunian abilities into what actually has brought me deeper into reality. It was like I needed to go deeper into Neptune to come more into a sense of reality, which is really fun. um, so it's like Caroline W. Casey says, build the temple to the god that's oppressing you, and Odysseus builds his temple to Neptune when he's like wants to get back home, and I don't really remember the story. Is he landlocked? Anyway, point is he was struggling with Neptune related issues, so he built a temple to Neptune, and that helped him get what he wanted. So I actually like built a temple to Neptune in my life, and it's been pretty great. Um, I don't worry about slipping into unreality anymore and not knowing how to find my way back because I do it consciously all the time now, every single day. And actually, like learning things like sitting in a bathtub, like being exactly what I always need. And that's how I go back home to myself. So, like, put some salts in a bath and everything's going to be okay. So that's all very Neptune. So Neptune has been just moving over all my planets, and now Neptune is at zero Aries, coming into Aries for this long stay. Okay, I'm not sure off the top of my head how long, but it'll be over a decade. And then Neptune will also be coming for my ascendant now because my ascendant's at 3 degrees of Aries. So I'm still in deep curriculum. I am in deep curriculum, and I'm probably going to change again before your eyes. Yeah, when Neptune was on my Mercury, I was like pouring out everything into my workbooks and all my self-published materials, and it started my podcast. And then when Neptune was on my Venus, I found Matt, my my current partner, a fellow Pisces who's been having his Neptune on his sun the last couple years, and that has been really beautiful to experience as a partner. So we've got that happening. It's happening for all of us. We're going into Aries now. We left the 12th sign and going to the first sign. This is a very powerful transitional point. This to me is like the fish that swims upstream to spawn for what? For new life. What is this new life? What is this new life? What is this new life? You're feeling me? But that's not the end of the story because we have Saturn coming. So Saturn has been in Pisces with Neptune. And Saturn is the planet that we associate with the realization of things, the embodiment of things, the concretization of things, the showing up, the building into time, the building into form. Like a thing coagulates into something from being part of everything, it now becomes something in form and you build it and it lasts. It lasts. It's like a thing that other people can experience beyond you. So we also think about Saturn with like legacy. And these things come about because of our devotions. They come through the commitment to what is enduring in us and what matters to us. And I have loved Saturn and Pisces. I've got to have Saturn on all those same planets. It's been a super healing experience because the last time that happened in the 90s, my dad died when Saturn was right on my sun on the retrograde, which is a thing that happens. So I was like, what's this going to be? But it has been um, just a real fortification in my maturity. And I just like really just landed into the greatness of feeling mature. Which, like, for a Pisces, there's this part of you that's like, I never want to grow up ever, though. Like, why would I want that? I want to be a fairy forever. And Saturn has really helped me work with Pisces to trust that, like, I'm always a fairy. Like, I'm always a magical being. But Saturn helps me um, hold all of that and like be able to make something to give to somebody else with it. So the language that I found for Saturn and Pisces was we cannot hold the infinite in our two hands without limiting it somehow. And like really appreciating how Saturn invites us to limit experience so that we can make something that we really care about and turn toward this and not another thing. I'm turning towards this and not another thing. And so Saturn is now coming into Aries on the 13th and will be in Aries then for the next 2.5, 3 years. Also going through my whole first house. So that'll be an experience. And they're coming together on February 20th. That's a Friday. And I believe it's like 11:52 Eastern. So my event is from 11 to 12 Eastern. So it'll be just escalating and peaking when we gather, and we'll be together for the peak. And so I'm calling it the Dream Reel, a magician's table global spell for personal and collective dream realizing, to realize the dream, to bring the dream into form. And this feels very strong and different with Aries, because Aries is like, let's go. Aries is like, yeah, but where's the action? Aries is like, I love you, but unless you're coming with me on the stream, I need you to move out of my way. It's very sassy this way. It's cardinal. And so, it's cardinal. There's a little bit of rudeness to that. It's a little bit brusque because it's like so important. It's so important what we're bringing into the world. Like we're bringing in spring here, or autumn if you're Southern Hemisphere. We're bringing in a whole new season. Like, think about how much reality changes from Pisces to the end of spring, end of Gemini. Like, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world. We're bringing in a whole new world. Like, what's the energy for that? What is the energy of zero Aries? Holy shit. Would you know it? That's where I have Eros, Eros, which is like this energy of wild aliveness, and the erotic force. And it feels like this is it. I mean, this is what we're doing. This is what I'm doing. And you're all invited because I want to feel that like collective group energy. I want to feel the spell beyond myself. I want to feel big group magic. So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to meet, and everybody's going to have, I haven't done the exact math on the times yet, but it's going to be, we're going to have a pretty tight schedule because I want to be done in an hour, and respect for Saturn. So what we're going to do is arrive, be on time. We're going to do an invocation, then do some like 15 minutes or so of personal divination where each person is on mute. You can have camera on or off. Ideally on, just so we can have the high sensation of seeing all these people doing their thing. And like, I want you channeling, I want you singing, I want you journaling, I want you in deep meditation, trance state. Like, bring in your own gnosis. Like, bring it to the space. Do it in the space with us. Let yourself be seen. This is zero Aries. I'm in action here. This is me at dawn rising. Like, I'm going when the sun rises. This Aries energy is very dawn. So we're showing up. We're divining, each of us. Then what we'll do is we'll do at least 3 minutes where everyone's on mute and you are just like speaking the spell that you've just divined into the space. Like, you're full blown. Sing it if you'd rather, chant it if you'd rather, but you are verbalizing and vocalizing, and we can all sense each other. We can feel the energy of the space of all these people giving a spell, naming what is going to happen, not just what you want to have happen, but what is going to happen, because Saturn and Neptune are coming together to help you. There's huge cosmic boost behind the spell. And then what we'll do is breakout rooms, and the number of people per room, I'm not totally sure yet, probably 8 to 10. I got to like do the math on minutes, but each person will then do the same 3 minute spell unmuted one by one. This is going to be so high sensation. There's a high vulnerability in being seen like that. But guess what? The the return on investment into like potential cringiness is amazing, because like, whoa, you really just did that. And then everybody witnessing each other doing it. It's so powerful. Oh my gosh. And each room is going to be hosted by someone from my community, past 13th readers, just different people who I really trust to just help hold the space, the basic structure. We're not chatting, we're just passing the mic around. Done. Then we come back together, closure, say hi, like, whoa, did that really just happen? And we're complete. We did it. We honored it. We did it. We honored the conjunction. So to be part of this is free. You just have to be on the Magician's Table 2026 mailing list, which then allows you to apply to the Magician's Table in 2026 or not. So just get on the list. That means you'll get the link to join in the group. And then 2 days later, the Magician's Table is opening for enrollment, or rather, application to enrollment. And then there'll be through March 4th, you have the opportunity to put your application in. And in the order received, we're going to place you into the cohort you choose and give you the tuition that you choose. So it's very preferable to apply early. Even then, not everybody signs up after they've applied. I would say maybe like 5% end up deciding not to. And so even applying is not an obligation, but it's a really powerful thing because you're casting then the spell onto your experience, and you better go big because the bigger the more fun. Big magic makes big change. And the theme this year for the Magician's Table is go big for your magic, go big for our world. And that works so beautifully with the Dream Reel, this big global spell event. And I say global because we're going to have Leanne, the person you're about to hear from, waking up at 3 a.m. to do this with us from Australia. We're going to have Shahir in Malaysia. We're going to have the 13th reader, Arizona Smith in the UK, the 13th reader, Lily Hussey in Santa Fe, me here in Texas, Tegan, who's staff holder for the TMT, is going to be in New York. So you can get a sense there. We've got people from all over. Mariola's hopefully coming, calling in from Paris. Jonathan may be able to come, calling in from New York. Aaron Kelly is going to be coming, calling in from Portland. Lisa Quigley is going to be coming, hopefully calling in from New York State as well. And Megan Fry, 13th reader from 2022, is going to be calling in from Brazil. Plus, we have TMT alums all over the world who I'm encouraging to come back for this. Just like bring the web together, y'all. We're bringing the web together. If you're listening, please tell your colleagues, please tell your friends, please just everybody, let's bring so much energy to this because the more people who come, like the bigger the ripples into the fields. So I'm so excited. Here is let me introduce you to Leanne. This is her bio. Leanne Thurogood, she, her, is a multidisciplinary esoteric practitioner weaving Celtic ancestral wisdom through astrology, energy healing, and tarot. Her work is devoted to remembering and reawakening the bone stories of her motherland, carried through the living lens of personal lore, including her reclamation of witch. Originally from Scotland, now living on unceded Wurundjeri land, her practice is held in deep reverence to its elders past, present, and future. You can find Leanne on Instagram at Of the Earth Esoteric and over on Substack with her publication, The Void. And Leanne is hosting the Wednesday 9 p.m. Eastern cohort. The 9 p.m. Eastern cohort. So that works really well for people in the Americas if you want evening. And then that works really well for those of you who are in Australia, Asia, because then that'll be Thursday morning for you. All right, y'all. I'm so excited. There were multiple times in this conversation with Leanne that I felt either very weepy, like there was like a deep bone level weepiness that came forward from experiencing her spirit. Or there was like a full body chills, like what this woman is speaking is important. Listen up. So I'm so excited to share the magic of Leanne with you here now. Enjoy the conversation. And if you love it, If at any point you're like, I fucking love this, please give a rating or review for Moon to Moon. I would appreciate it so much. I have two new reviews that I think happened because I requested earlier in the episode. So thank y'all so much. That was so exciting to experience. Yay. So if you're listening right now and you're like, oh yeah, I haven't done that yet, like maybe just do it right now. It doesn't take very long and it really matters to the podcast and it matters to me. It matters to people who are like, should I actually listen to this? Like, our time is precious. What do we really want to listen to? You know? So, if you could just say a few sentences about the kind of experience that this podcast takes you on, that would really help someone locate if it would resonate for them. Thank you. All right. Enjoy the conversation. See you on the other side. Welcome to Moon, Leanne Thurogood. We were just talking about pronouncing your name. How'd I do?
Perfect.
You
Beautiful.
you were saying Thorogood is rooted in Thor?
Yeah. So I am a nerd. Just to come straight in with it, you might as well know. Um, and yeah, I love to research etymology and the origins of where things come from. But yeah, so I was researching my surname and the Norse origin of it is Thor. And that's because I traced it back, like that side of my lineage is my paternal side. And the very, very sort of furthest back routing that I could find was Normandy. And actually, both my lines go as far back as that I can find. And so there's that Norse rooting there. And then I started going into the surname side of things. And yeah, so Thorogood started off as coming from Thor. It was then Christianized or like Anglo-Saxonized, that's not the correct terminology, but it was shifted to through God, um, from Thor, and then we landed on Thorogood. And I know that there's, through the spreading out of humanity as we do, the migration of humanity, there's Thorogoods in America as well, and they spell it with the O, so it's Thor instead of the UR. So yeah, there's lots of different ways to spell it, but it all kind of comes from that, yeah, like that Norse Thor origin.
Oh, I love it. My LaRue, it was originally a relative from Normandy who was LaRue, Roux, meaning the red. Like the
Ooh,
they were the LaRues were Protestants fleeing what were they called? The I'm blanking. Uh the Protestants who were fleeing and went to the Americas because they were Protestants. Now I'm blanking on there's a name for them. But the listeners are probably like, it's this. But anyway, I think it's pretty cool because my maternal line's from Sweden. And so then having the red from my paternal line is pretty cool, even though we're otherwise from the UK on my dad's side. So
oh,
you're from Scotland.
yes, I'm from Scotland.
What part?
Yeah, I'm from, it's near Edinburgh, but it's called Fife. And yeah, I grew up mostly in a really small village, by the ocean, like a fisherman style village, called Lime Kilns. And that has its, everything's name is rooted to something, and that's because the limestone kilns, where that was like what the work was in that town. But yeah, so I grew up in a really small village. But then I had the experience of traveling the world through, again, my dad's side. He worked abroad, and so we did move around a lot. So I've had experiences a child living in Spain, and other places and around England. My dad is originally from England, and my mom is from Scotland. Um, but yeah, so I feel like in Scotland we all have a similar experience with that because it's such a small piece of land when you look at it on the map. I mean, when you go there, if you've ever been, and you go to the Highlands and you stand in the expanse of the Highlands, it definitely doesn't feel small. It feels so expansive and huge and almost like you could be the only person there for miles and miles and miles. But yes, when you look at it on a map, it's small, and of course, we're populated in small areas. So I feel we all have a very similar experience of moving around and migrating all over the world. And of course, I am now in Australia, so I am one of those people.
Wow. There's so many things I want to ask you, but I will say I have been to Scotland. I went by myself. I went stayed in Edinburgh and for a few days, and then I joined this haggis backpacking tour. It's called with a bunch of backpackers from around the world, and we went up to the Isle of Skye and toured around, and I was like, I must be from here. Like it felt so enchanted.
Yeah,
As a young person who
absolutely.
born in raised in a city, uh, it was so magical to walk the land. You're so right about how vast it feels. Yeah.
Yeah, it really looks tiny on a map, but it's massive. And I hear that from so many folk who go to Scotland and they go to, especially Skye. There's something so incredibly magical about Skye and um, it's got the fairy pools and the Cullen Mountains, and it really is almost like another world.
Yeah. Wow. Well, let's back up. I always love to ask, talk about how we connected so that listeners can ground into how we know each other and what we're doing talking to each other. I know that I don't think I knew who you were until last year when you joined the Magician's Table last year. I think through Lisa Quigley. Is that correct? Yes.
Yes.
Is that did you find me and the Magician's Table this time last year?
So I knew about the Magician's Table previous to last year through Lisa Quigley. So I met Lisa Quigley back in, it would have been 2023 through another mutual friend. And um, I'm pretty sure not, she had done the Magician's Table herself at this point. And so it was,
2023.
yeah, so maybe it was right after
Okay.
that I met Lisa because it was still very much in her field. Like it was still very much like oscillating around her. And I remember taking note, like I wasn't looking into it, I wasn't, but I clocked it. And that's how I became aware of yourself. Um, and also through astrology and the astrology podcast and like other I'm an astrology nerd also, so yeah, I've known of you in that sort of like yeah, sort of like outside space, like oscillating around me, and yeah, the Magician's Table has been in my field for a few years, but last year was the first time I felt the call. um Admittedly ignored it at first.
As one does.
As one does. Um, I think it's a natural response to the acknowledgement that if you go into this space, change will occur. By no way, shape, or form will that be avoided if you say yes to this. So yeah, but yeah, that's how I know of you and of your work is through your many, magical projects. And yeah, the Magician's Table came to me through Lisa more officially last year. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like maybe I remember Lisa speaking to, and listeners, Lisa, if you probably know that Lisa was a 13th reader last year. And I think she shared that it was like a pretty magical, like you suddenly knew. And then the doorway was just there.
Yes. So, yes, I came in at the very last minute. I watched most of the promo. I was the vulture that was circling. That was me. And so by the time Lisa even mentioned anything about there being space, because I then obviously just assumed there was not. I was kind of like, oh, this feels like this really does feel like a I can't ignore this kind of feeling. Very strong impulse to just go with it. And yeah, when I filled in the application form, I even for a minute was still like there was something in me trying to back away from it before I pressed send. But in that moment when I was trying to back away from it, I looked up from my phone that I was filling it. So I looked up from the screen and my living room was not there. There was just this portal, is the best way to describe it. It was just, when worlds blur completely in front of your very eyes. And I just knew I had to jump through. There was absolutely no way that I could ignore that. I was like, I am somebody who says, you jump through your portals, you jump through your doorways, you say yes. And so I jumped through, but there was a literal doorway, yes.
Yes, because I mean, and this is like the story that I tell about the magic of last year because when it wasn't filling and we were getting down to the end, I, all of us, we did magic like I've never done as a team behind the scenes before to everyone, not coerce anybody in, just help make the doorway appear to those meant to come in because it only works if everyone's resonant and consenting, right? Um, and so just like create, just spending time in visualization magic around doorways to help make it available and seen. So hearing that story reflected back was such a profound experience of the realness of magic. I mean, it really is breathtaking. It's so cool.
Yeah,
So
it was
I'm
very
curious.
real. Yeah,
And you were in Shahir's cohort
yes.
with Lily.
Yes, I was. Yeah, it's so exciting that they are going to be a 13th reader again this year, and that Lily is also going to be a 13th reader this year. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Tell me who were you a year ago? Where were you going? What were you calling in? What was alive for you? What were you hoping would happen? What were you also terrified would happen as you were in that moment of saying yes to the magician's table?
Yeah. I had just had so we were just starting the year, and at the start of that year, I had just gone back to Scotland on a pilgrimage, essentially. So I reflect on that time right before the magician's table as the recollection of parts of me that I didn't know yet, parts of me that either had been left through childhood or even through lifetimes that I personally haven't experienced in this body. But it felt like a really deep call from the Kaliak to go back to the land and to recollect. So I did that at the start of the year. And when I entered the magician's table, I was in a state of integration and liminality at the same time. It was like I was still fully integrating these parts of self that I knew were going to take a long time, but I felt really alive in this idea that I could enter into a workshopping space, a magical playground, right, for peers, for kin, and be in that way, be not fully I didn't have to be fully who I was going to be yet, if that makes sense. Um
Yes.
which was super vulnerable for me, which is something I generally completely would have avoided. Um, so there was, I'm an Aquarius rising, getting really vulnerable in front of peers is just like not something I had done before, and I felt a cracking open was going to occur inside, um, before I even began. But yeah, I was calling in the the crone was the hag was the energy that I went in calling in. I felt like I was personally in a huge transition in my life from not to hag, but more to wild woman, I guess, if you're like looking at these underground archetypes that we're resonant with, moving away from mother. Um, Both my children had their Saturn squares, and so for those who don't know, that's the first 7 years of life, and they were moving into 8 years old and 9 years old, and I was starting to feel like, okay, now it's time for me to do something that is fully resonant with what I'm going to be doing in my next chapter of life outside of mother. While I always hold mother with me, right? They're still little, so it's still very much here. But yes, moving into that next stage. So that was what was really alive for me entering into the magician's table last year. Yeah.
Whoa. I felt very emotional several times as you were speaking. Can you tell me what is it, the Kaliak? Am I saying it
Ca-
correctly?
yeah, the Kaliak.
Can you tell me about this?
Yeah. So for me, the Kaliak is this known as, right, a goddess, or but for me it's so much more than that. Um she is the creatrix of the land, the Celtic lands of Scotland and Ireland, but more so than that, her soul energy, her element, she's an elemental being to me, lives within the land itself. And so for me, whenever I refer to the Cailleach, I'm really talking about Scotland. I'm really talking about the hills. I'm really talking about the water, the air, everything that, the peat that runs through the soil there, everything. Um, she is an elemental force and a creatrix, but she rules over cycles. So the cyclical nature of death and rebirth, of destruction and creation. And so she's known as like the Hag of the Hills, or the old woman, the wise woman. Um, Sometimes it's a direct translation in the Irish Gaelic language to witch. Um, but yeah, her call to me was very strong in the lead up to 2025. And so for me, yeah, she really is this. She's like a bone mother, a stone mother. Like she's a giantess. Her energy is all encompassing, and her call, once it was through the mycelium, through however it reached me on the other side of the world, through the waterways, through the air, was very strong, and it's stayed with me since. And so she is like an elder that I look to, but also this powerful creator being that really holds this, yeah, holds the resonance of the land for me. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I'm so moved. Did you grow up with this knowing?
Yeah. A little bit. Not the way I know now. But
Hmm.
we are told, although I will say this, my partner, he is also from Scotland and he knows nothing of the Cailleach until me telling him. So I always just assumed we were all told these stories. Maybe we never were. Maybe I just remember it from another time. But I believe somehow I knew this and was told stories of the Cailleach because I remember even just like very specific ones because she does live in every facet of the land. Um, the knowing that I always had when we started to see the snow on the mountains, right? That was because the Cailleach had come from her cave in Ben Nevis, where she holds Bride, and actually that's an Imbolc story, right? So she holds Bride prisoner, who's the goddess of summer, and she holds her prisoner in her cave in Ben Nevis. But yeah, right as the the spring to winter side of things is when she goes and she takes her giant plaid, which is tartan, big tartan skirt, and she takes it and she goes to the Corryvreckan whirlpool, which is a whirlpool in the ocean, off the coast of, I can't remember what isle it's off the coast of now, actually. I'll come back to that. But anyway, the Corryvreckan whirlpool is very Googleable. It exists. And so she takes her plaid to the Corryvreckan whirlpool, which is like her washing machine, and she dips it in the whirlpool and it, cycles out all of the tartan and it becomes pure white. And then she goes and she lays her plaid over the mountains, and that's the snow.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've always known this.
Oh, are there songs too to sing?
There's it's not so much like a vocal song,
Uh-huh.
but there's music that's dedicated to the Cailleach, through like the bagpipes, and yeah, so less like singing, but there is, and I truly wish I could remember her name off the top of my head now, but I will let you know so you can put it in the notes for this because it's a beautiful song and I've used it on my Instagram posts a few times, and she sings of the Cailleach. And she sings from a place that is deeply felt. So there's folks singing beautiful songs. But in childhood, it was mostly, we did like Scottish country dancing at school as, part of the curriculum. And one of the like songs that we would do the dancing to was called Hag o' the Hills. And it's like a jig. It's very jolly, but there's music dedicated to her as well. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for taking us these places. I'm curious when you came to the magician's table, as you were integrating this return, this pilgrimage, I guess you would say, did you use that word?
Yeah.
What were you feeling you wanted to bring through as your offering? And did it evolve over the time of the magician's table?
Well.
Your face.
Oh, I got chills. So it's so interesting because, yes, going in, I assumed it would be an astrology offering or a tarot offering that I was going to do. That was just as it was going to be. Like, that's what I was going to do. I was going to evolve something that I was already working on or that I had already been playing around with, and that was that. However, that is not at all what happened. And I was, as we do at my altar, with my ancestors, I was asking for guidance, like what is the offering that you. I felt they really guided me to this container as well. Circling around really quickly, Lisa, the glitch witch, is somebody that uh, because they have been a trusted magical confidant, right, for years, I feel my guides do speak through Lisa at times, especially when I'm avoidant. And I felt it was very guided through them as well that I go to the table. So I sat with them. What is this offering that you want me to bring through? And I'm pulling cards and and everything, like and of course they never give clear, concise, this is what you should do answers. But it was all just like trust, 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 trust yourself. And I'm like, what do you mean trust myself? Like, of course I'll trust myself, but what do you mean? Like, I need more than trust myself. Like, give me something. I am a Virgo sun. Trust myself with no organizational, no list, no nothing. You want me to go with nothing? And I just thought of, and it brought up everything, I'm going to
Yeah.
let these people down. My offering's going to be rubbish. I'm going to make a fool of myself. All the things, right? Truly, that my Virgo sun, and of course the South Node eclipse just happened as well on my sun right before the Magician's Table last year. So it was bringing up all these perfectionism wounds and all these ways in which it's like, oh, you must, release these parts of yourself if you're going to authentically express yourself and actually do the things you want to do in life, right? Rather than doing it through this like organizational, pre-planning to avoid fear lens. So when I went in, I genuinely had no idea what my offering was going to be because my guides were really clear that it wasn't to be an astrology offering and it wasn't to be a tarot offering. So I felt really untethered and I felt really floating because I've got my tools, right? That's the thing. Like, I'm like, well, why do I have all these tools if I'm not going to use them? But of course, they are huge tools in everything I do always. I think what they really wanted me to develop was something that I had a fear around bringing into like an offering space, which was a practice that I had been doing myself, that I had been using as an energy modality that was not the chakras, but that was rooted in my Celtic cosmology. And that was the Three Cauldrons. And that was the offering that I ended up developing throughout my time at the table.
Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps on my legs. So now, can you tell us about the three collagens, please?
Yeah, the Three Cauldrons has been a practice for me since 2023. Something that I have been leaning into myself, and so the easiest way to describe it, I think, is if you think of chakras as, you have it's been a while since I've used chakras now. It's like seven, eight, nine. Anyway,
Hmm.
we have three cauldrons in Celtic cosmology, and so everything in my ancestral lineage, it really ties into these three, six, nine, these sacred sort of triadic numbers. And the three cauldrons are they're this idea. They're so much more than just energy centers, to be really clear, because they are like an ecosystem in and of themselves that can be used as energy management. And what I love about them so much is they are sovereign energy management. And so that was actually the scariest part of trying to do this offering, is because I don't interfere with the cauldrons, if that makes sense. And so, as someone who have done, Reiki, Reiki master, all that sort of stuff, where I'm channeling life force energy and the such. With the cauldrons, it's different. It's a sovereign practice, and it's you're guiding folks into them activating their own for themselves. But that's the practice that I had been doing for a long time. So the three cauldrons you have on Cori Goriath, on Cori Irma, and on Cori Soish, and these are associated with the realm of the sea, the realm of the earth, and the realm of the sky. And with that, it branches out into all these other cosmologies that really tie us into the world around us as we live in it and as we move through it. And on Cori Goriath, for example, being connected to the sea, I think of that as the oceanic waters that we all come from and will go back to. And so it's attached to lineage and it's attached to ancestry. And you could think of the root chakra in a way, in the similarities with, this idea of feeling safe. But it's so much more than just feeling safe. Truly, it's about belonging, but recognizing that you belong, not just because you are like an individual person that belongs in this world, but because you are of this world, like you are of this earth. It's so much more than just this idea of belonging. There's words for it that uh, beg they don't have English, words, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's the Three Cauldrons.
Oh, what was it like for you to do one week after the next with one partner after the next?
It was it was really great, and it was vulnerable because I felt like I was almost learning how to do something in the moment, because it was really in those partner spaces, in those one-on-one readings, where I was learning at the same time to actually create this offering. So it was both wonderful and really vulnerable and so supportive. And yeah, it was the environment for the cauldrons to come through. So I know exactly why my ancestors wanted me to do it in that space, because it was the intensity of having those weekly reading exchanges, but also it needed to be that way.
Hmm. Yeah, and what was it like to receive the reflections from each partner week after week?
So incredibly powerful, very emotional. I feel a little bit emotional even now when I haven't thought about it for a little while actually. So it's kind of just hitting me. I'll breathe through that for a moment. But oh, yes, it was, I think, one of the up there with one of the most powerful isn't really, I feel it's an overused word for the explanation of that experience. But yes, I felt very seen. I felt very held by these people that were becoming true kin to me. It was, yeah, the reflections where there are no real words, very emotional, very powerful, and such a gift, such a gift.
I really feel that in my body, and I'm so happy knowing that that experience was something that you had there. I've seen it from when I used to be in the rooms, and just trust that it just goes on. And everyone, you know, what's funny? That came from an activity I did when I used to teach seventh grade when I was in my 20s, where I would have the kids put, seventh grade is such a weird time. Maybe you don't, do you know seventh grade? It's 13, like when you're turning 13.
Yeah, we have the similar system here in Australia. So, yeah.
Okay. And um, put, they'd tape a piece of paper to their backs and everyone would write their fate, something they really appreciate and love about each person.
It's such a beautiful practice. Yeah, isn't it crazy how that practice evolved from something that you learned within like a childhood. I feel like so much of what is so magical is when we really do tap into that, like, what do children do? Because they just don't have that same barrier, sheath, something that just like
Yeah.
prevents us from just being like, you're amazing. And now I feel truly like after being in the magician's table, it's something I want to do all the time is tell people how they have impacted me in the most positive way because it really recognizing on my end what that does for a person. I'm like, I want to share that now with the world. I want to do that in day-to-day encounters with people, in everyday conversations. I want to tell you how wonderful you are.
Yeah, and I feel like in that workshop environment when it's so vulnerable and each person is just in this like frequency of sincerity that's connected to the sincerity of their love for whatever that modality or complex modalities is. And in some cases, it's just like ancestor led, spirit led. Um, they're coming into a modality that's they're making up in real time, like you. The sincerity of showing up like that in service to another person is just like everybody is so beautiful and they're just so exquisite. You know, it's just such a beautiful experience of other human beings.
Yeah, it is a beautiful experience of other human beings and it's I wish everybody truly could actually experience what it's like to connect with people this way because you really do get to it the bonds made within that space and not just within our individual cohorts within the magician's table, but also the way that it has web threads that just blow out and extend through you encounter people that you didn't even know had anything to do with that space and you through getting to know them discuss it truly is this very wild web of connections that are so magical and again a gift like it is another gift of being a part of the magician's table is the community and like not just like community that you chit chat and it's no it's like truly we are we are coming together in conversations that are important that feel world changing and world building it's yeah such a gift such a gift.
They, yeah, it has this Aquarian quality of like holding that paradox of staying with your unique frequency so that you can then bring it out into the world with others who also are holding that too. And there's like a singing resonance, but it doesn't mean you're matching exactly alike.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious how your I've been loving watching you on Instagram. I'd love to hear you talk about like how since the Magician's Table, you've been experimenting with different things to bring through from what you learned.
Yeah. Um, so after the magician's table, I felt that the way that the cauldrons were speaking to me then, they felt like they wanted to be held in group space. So I was learning to do this one-on-one experience within the magician's table, and I knew I wanted to absolutely have a one-on-one offering, like a ceremonial, ritualistic style offering where um, it's just me and the other person, and for the first time, getting to know these cauldrons. And I will say, while it's Celtic cosmology, Celtic practices they're not closed. I won't say for Irish specific, I'll separate that from my specific practice, but it's not a closed practice. And um, it resonates with people from all walks of life, which is so fascinating to me. Um, but so I have the one-on-one offering, and I actually called it Kaliak's Cauldron Cave because I have a deep love for dark cave spaces myself, and it felt like this idea of just being me and another person in front of a fire, like activating the cauldrons. And because there's so many tales around the Kaliak in caves with cauldrons, it felt so fantastically. It felt great. So that's the one-on-one offering. But yeah, it really wanted to be brought to group space. And so one of my biggest, I will call it a fear, was past tense. One of my biggest fears was, we'll call it public speaking to distill it into something very simple. But the idea of holding group space and being like at the helm of that was one of my biggest fears, was being like yeah, the person that people were listening to only. And so the cauldrons were like, well, this is what we want though. So this is what is going to happen next. And so I started the Circle of the Kaliak, which is a group space for mystics, for anybody who resonates with that word. I feel like mystic is a word that is open to this idea of poets and artists and musicians and anybody that feels like they're in relationship with the natural world. Like I'm really obsessed with this book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and it's this idea of the I think of it as like the Welsh call it Awen, I call it Imbas Forosni, which is divine inspiration, but it's big magic in Elizabeth Gilbert's book, and it floats around and it's like it lands, and you're given this opportunity through this like moment of like aha, or like an idea, or just like a tiny little ember of like this is a thing, and you have the opportunity if you're going to develop that or not, right? And if not, it's going to leave and it's going to go find someone else because its time is now, but maybe your time is not now, right? Maybe it's just
Mm.
a resonance thing or whatever. But yeah, I love that concept of big magic. So for me, a mystic is anyone that resonates with that idea of big magic and, divine inspiration. And that, I mean, if poetry is not that, I do not know. If music is not that, I don't know. Are all of it. So it's a space for anyone who resonates with that, for diviners. And it's not necessarily essential that you can divine, because to me, picking up a book, bibliomancy is divining. So picking up a book and scrolling through flipping through the pages and landing on a sentence that is drawn to me, that's divination also. So I make space for all these different kinds of ways of being magical, right? Or experiencing your own magic. And every circle space I hold a cauldron guided journey. And so that's how I developed the group space idea of the cauldrons wanting to be among other people. And yeah, so I no longer have a fear of
Yes, I was wanting to get back to that.
yeah. No, I also was in a Pluto transit throughout the whole of last year, and
Uh-huh.
into this year. So my moon is at 2 degrees of Aquarius. And so I didn't have but a choice, because if we know anything about Pluto, it's you can resist as much as you like, right? And it's not this, you can resist as much as you like, and if you don't do it, terrible things will happen. It is not that, to be really clear. It's more just this, you have the choice, right? You can continue to resist it, and it's not going to shift, change, alchemize. It will just stay the same, which is in and of itself its own kind of torture. And
Yes.
then and then you have the option to surrender to the Platonic magic and the breakdown of what needs, the constructs, the walls, the cages that have to be dismantled in order for the fear to be alchemized. and I chose that one. Just knowing, being an astrologer, knew this transit was coming for years before it happened, which is one of the gifts of astrology. It does not prevent you at all from going through the experience and being served the medicine on a platter for you to feast upon. It is not going to spare you any of that, but I was able to, I guess, mentally prepare, emotionally prepare, physically prepare for the knowing that I was going to experience a Pluto conjunct my natal moon transit. And knowing that my moon is a tender spot for me. In Placidus, it's in my 12th house, and in whole sign, it's in my first house. So I have that internal experience of this 12th house moon resonance, and knowing that Pluto was going to be there, I knew there was things that I needed to put in place, but it did not prevent the having to go through and alchemize in real time the fears that were very real and that were coming up in real time through all the things that I said yes to.
Wow. That's very exciting. I get excited by Pluto things. I didn't know astrology when I had my moon in Capricorn Pluto transit, but it was kind of a harrowing time without that context. So it sounds like Pluto is taking you exactly where you need to go. You'll be bringing that even further into being a 13th reader this year.
Yes, yes, no. And Pluto has become a bit of, dare I say, an ally. Pluto
Hmm.
energy for me is something that I think my whole life I have grappled with in different ways. And I found myself in a interesting situation where I live on my Pluto IC line,
Oh,
where I live
wow.
right now. Yeah. And real close. And even when I go into local space, it runs right through the back of my house. So Pluto is here as far as
Yeah.
and everywhere I've gone around this area, when I pull up the local space lines, it either runs directly through the house or just right through the back or the front of the house. So yes, and it's, in the main astrocartography chart, it's the main line that runs right through. So I clearly was guided here to do Pluto things. So for me, I feel I was supported in a way being on my Pluto line. I was fortified by having experienced the energy of Pluto in my real life for a long time prior to the conjunction with my moon. And also in whole sign, Pluto's in my 10th house. So it's a lesson, a lot, 10th house things are something you age into. I think it's not something that you immediately master. So aging into, learning into, leaning into this 10th house Pluto in Scorpio. Yeah, it kind of it was a big cauldron pot last year, including the Magician's Table and all the other things that kind of were happening around it. But as always, it all was supposed to happen at that time. The puzzle pieces all fit perfectly.
Mm. I'm curious for TMT 2026 if you have a feeling yet about what you may all be workshopping yourself.
Well,
I'm sure you'll be, yeah, you can have presumptions now and find out later, but
well, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's so funny. I have been thinking about it, and I think it's going to be a similar experience where I'm going to again, I like everything, I feel like this was also guided. There's obviously something in a workshopping space that um my ancestors want me to lean into or learn into, whether that be with the cauldrons. I think it might be, I don't know. I don't want to say anything that I'm just not 100% sure of, honestly, but we will see. But it'll all be guided. It'll all be guided, and in real time, and I doubt I'm going to be allowed to make too much prep around it. So we'll see, yeah. But it likely will have something to do with the cauldrons and the evolution of that I have had throughout this year. So yeah, we will see.
Do you have anything you would say to those listening who are thinking about joining the Magician's Table 2026, who may, and even those who may end up with you in your cohort?
Yeah. Well, if you are if you are oscillating around this at this time, if the being that is the magician's table has started to circle around you, you likely will already be noticing shifts in your life. You will be feeling an urge, and you might also be feeling deeply resistant to that urge. The magician's table is a Uranian activating, but all encompassing being. And you might be noticing synchronicities, you might be noticing just small things. That is that is the being calling you. So I would say get on the wait list for sure. And if you end up with me as your 13th reader, I am so excited to be back in this workshopping space with you and like with you. I'm so excited. I'm also just as nervous to do that as you are. I am. It's it's humbling. It's vulnerable. So I'm with you on that 100%. But I'm really excited to meet you. Yeah. I think yeah, that feels like all I have to say.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Is there anything that you wish or that you wanted to say that hasn't come through yet? Do you feel complete?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, this has been such a treat, Leanne. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Leanne. That was really, really special. And I'm just so delighted to be in connection with you. Thank you also to Lisa Quigley, who introduced Leanne to the Magician's Table and encouraged her to come in. What a gift. How special. Listeners, this is often how the Magician's Table works. There are mysterious, weird WYRD ways in which individuals find themselves drawn to the magician's table. They hear about it through the mouths of people they know. If you are an alum of the Magician's Table and it matters to you, it meant something to you, I'm encouraging you right now to think about the people that you know who would love this and please share information about it with them. Nudge them to get on the waiting list. Nudge them to be following the promo pathway. Nudge them to come to the Dream Reel event to see if they like the vibe we've got over here. It's always been a space that magnetizes on strong resonance. You know, as I talked about with Tegan West a few episodes ago, who was a 13th reader last year and who is now working as the staff holder, basically meaning like my like energetic and logistical and I don't know how to I don't even know how to use regular language for these kinds of jobs because her job is extremely magical and mystical, but she's like an assistant, but like that is just not a great word for this. Staff holder is what the word is. She puts her magical staff into the space and helps hold it, care for it, listen to it. So, what we were talking about is how this space, kind of like the rest of my work, has a real strong skunk energy, as in it's very attractive and repellent at the same time. And, there are people that are just neutral. They're just like, they're never going to do the magician's table. And that's fine. That helps keep the space hyper resonant, is that it's like very clear if this is for you or not. If it's dissonant, what that could be telling you is that it is for you. The question is this a process for you to move through the resistance here inside of this promo, or are you coming here maybe in like 2027 or something? Because if there's dissonance, that's a kind of resonance. And there's something there for you. I put out so much in this time period so that you can attune to it, you can listen, you can come to your own knowing. Pretty much everybody comes scared. So if you're scared or you're worried like everybody's going to be better than you or it's going to be embarrassing, everybody has that. Like those are not the signals that this is not for you. Like welcome, welcome. That's part of like the initiation, is moving through those things and finding out like, oh, everybody has that too. Um, so yeah, if there's anything that comes up for you that's not getting answered from the website, the emails, the Instagrams, or the podcast episodes, I trust that you will reach out. Sending everybody a big hug. See you at the dream reel.